better to define if you can define the limits of the insertion, it would help you in planning your surgery. So earlier what was done, you had A and B scan ultrasound, which are used for thyroid abnormalities, CT scan, MRI, all these, the patient really has to go through a tedious process. I mean, when you have to get an MRI for the muscles. But even though all these things have been there in the past, but none of these techniques has been able to define the precise insertion of the muscles to the globe and the distance of the insertion from the limbus. That is so important. Now you have newer tools like OCT as well. UBM has been in vogue since quite some time. And because they have improved penetration and resolution, it's an OPD procedure. I mean, it's such a convenient thing to do if you have one for your surgical planning. ASOCT, yes, obviously it's something new in the armamentarium, so you would require more validation, more studies, and of course, Dr. Savleen is really into it and publishing. So we are getting more on these things and how helpful these tools are going to be. So UBM has been shown to be a useful tool for your location of extraocular muscle. Whatever few studies have been done, it has helped in better planning and for the surgery. So it could be like, it's basically a 35 to 50 megahertz probe. We have a 10 megahertz probe as well. It has excellent tissue differentiation, resolution of 0.1 millimeter, and a good penetrance. It provides a magnified image of the anterior segment, which is real time, in a non-invasive manner. So distance, the most important thing is the distance of the extraocular muscle from the limbus, what we are interested in. So because that's going to decide whether we would be operating on this muscle or whether we need to touch the other eye. And what has been done for the muscles. Why has the patient developed a squint? Has the muscle migrated? Has it slipped? Is there a pseudotendon formation? That is the most important thing what a UBM tells. But yes, it could also tell the status of the scoroid and the sclera beneath the suture site. So why is all this needed? Why do we need to do UBM? We can just go ahead and plan a surgery and on our clinical evaluation. Well, when you have imaging, why not? I mean, it would definitely give you a better guidance in what you're going to do, because during surgery, excessive manipulation of the tissues, when it is based on an assumed location, can affect the surgical access. There is more conjunctival scarring, more bleeding when you're just assuming that where the muscles are. So do a UBM. So as I told you, it has a 10 megahertz scanner. Obviously, the 50 megahertz has a better resolution, 10 times higher. The quality is much better. The field is wider. So how it is done is basically it has a probe, which I'll be showing you in my next slide. A transducer probe held, and accessories such as an eye cup, which were used previously, or a clear scan tips, which are now available. And scanning is performed when the patient in the supine position. So it cannot be performed in the sitting position, and it's done under topical anesthesia in the outpatient clinic. So these are the two ways it could be done. The earlier way how it was done was like you can say like an immersion scan. You have a cup here, you fill up fluid, and you have the probe going inside. But now you have a clear scan technique where you have a sleeve which goes onto the probe, and you have fluid in that. And I mean, you have a wider view. It's more comfortable for the patient. So the advantages of this clear scan technique is it's sterile, it's safe, it's comfortable, and it's quick. So this extends the clinical research of UBM because ocular structures which are 10 millimeters peripheral to the limbus now can be visualized without a fear of causing any corneal injury. And this is FDA approved. So this is how it's done. It's a very simple thing. You hold the probe tangentially over the muscle and move it to and fro over the limbus with the oscillation perpendicular to the limbus. So it's fairly a simple procedure without you're not going onto the cornea, so no chances of any corneal injury. If you want to scan the medial rectus, you could adduct the eye, or if you want to abduct the eye, or if you want to scan the lateral rectus, probably then you need to adduct the eye. So you can get a better view of the muscle. So how do we see these muscles? You have done a UBM. Of course, this is important now. This comes with experience. Look what to look for. How do the muscles look like? Whether it's a true muscle or whether you're having some other kind of a morphology of the muscles, some kind of a pseudotendon or a scar. So this would come with experience. So just to show you what it does is, this is a sulcus to sulcus scan. So depending upon depicting the opposite angles. So from these angles now, we need to go back till we are able to see the muscle belly. Now this muscle belly, this appears as a hyporeflective area starting from this and going posteriorly. So the limits are there. How posteriorly can you go is the limitation, but it does help you in planning, and which I will be coming later to in my talk and telling you how it would help even if you're not able to see it. So just to give you a little real-time scenario where you can see what happens is, this is the UBM. So this is the area where we go. That's the area between the stroma and the sclera. So it's hyporeflective and a reflective sclera. So once you go posteriorly, and then you start seeing a shadow, a hyporeflective area. This is a linear shadow. Now this is what the muscle insertion is, from where the muscle would be starting. Now just to, without those markings, you're going posteriorly from the limbus, from the angle, and now you can see the black shadow. So this is where the muscle insertion is. That's how you delineate on the UBM where the actual muscle insertion is. So it's a distance which is measured from the limbus with an inbuilt caliper. So from the starting of the shadow, which is this pointer here, up to the limbus would give you the insertion where you can add a millimeter to it, because they say that it's the angle is really, it's the posterior by 1 millimeter to the limbus. So that's again a recessed lateral rectus muscle, and you measure the chord length from the limbus to the insertion of the muscle. Now this is the insertion of the muscle, and this is your so-called limbus. Now this is a resected muscle. It's a magnified view. You can see how thick it is, but yes, it starts off from somewhere here, and then you can easily measure the distance. So when you have a pseudo tendon, now those, if you saw those shadows, there was really good, nice shadows which are going posteriorly. But sometimes what happens is you have a faint shadow here. So this faint shadow is not really continuous posteriorly somewhere. So it could be a pseudo tendon or maybe some kind of a scar. So this is also something which, with experience, one would come to know what is, you could identify the cause of maybe an ESO or exo after doing a surgery years later when you have such type of an appearance. So yes, this is not easy. It's not easy to identify in the first go. You would need to see many UBMs. You would need to do UBMs to be able to delineate what this looks like. So in the magnified view again, if you see, that's the view, this small area here. So that's like a pseudo tendon. So the limits of detection with the 50 Hertz probe, medial rectus is like now 13, lateral rectus is 15 with the studies coming on, and in vertical recti about 12 millimeters from the limbus. So that is how posterior you can go from the limbus to identify a muscle, not beyond that. So this is one of the study which was done at a center. This was a thesis where we studied the UBM insertions in horizontal recti muscles after their surgery. And so these were patients who are undergoing primary horizontal muscle surgery, but yes, because it's slightly older study, so you use the 10 Hertz probe. We could identify medial rectus muscles in all cases, and 14 out of 16 lateral rectus muscles. Fairly accurate measurements. They were plus minus 1 millimeter within the intraoperative measurements with the surgical calipers as well. So it was fairly accurate. So we had 14 medial rectus muscles where we recessed 5, resected 9. We had 16 lateral rectus. So the medial rectus were recessed much lesser as compared to the lateral rectus. So that's why probably the UBM could identify medial rectus in 100%, whereas in lateral rectus, probably just in 8 cases, 3 recessions, and the maximum limit was 11.2 and 13.8 for the lateral rectus and 11.2 for the medial rectus. So we could not go beyond that. If the lateral rectus was beyond 14 millimeters from the limbus, probably we were unable to identify. So the second place where it's been useful is plications. Now, resections, there have been reports and studies, but plications probably, yes, how they behave and how useful the UBM is has not been studied so extensively. So this was just where we compare the efficacy of resection of horizontal recti with plication in treatment of exotropia with did UBM measurements. The
time is up, please continue.
Fairly accurate in
Can you just please switch off the timer? It's okay. We'll have enough time. We'll just take 1 or 2 more minutes.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
So basically, the results are fairly comparable in both of them, and we could identify the muscles on the UBM as well. You can see here the plication. What is happening is it's a double shadow. So that's the difference between resection. So you have one shadow above, one shadow below. So if you want to know how much is the plication done, it's like if you double up the measurements, that's it. So it's twice the length of the double shadow. So that's the amount of the plication. So it's fairly useful here as well. In when your patient has had plications and you want to know basically how much it has been done and what has gone wrong if what after a certain period of time, like this patient here. So you can see here the shadow above is receded as compared to the shadow below. So this is a plicated muscle. Now, is it a slippage of suture or is it a receding effect of the muscle plication? Yes, you can study this. Although you can correlate with the clinical outcome also, but yes, in this patient, probably we did not have any kind of over or an under correction happening even with this amount of slippage. So, I mean, it does give you some kind of imaging of the muscle, that what is happening, is it correlating to your clinical picture or not, and it can help us further in further studies as well. So the shortcomings are that there's a limit of detection because of obstruction of the probe, the nasal probe. When you're going medially, it's the nose. And yes, the limits are probably more than 7 to 8 millimeters of the limbus. Probably it's difficult to image the muscle. So I would conclude here by saying that it's a non-invasive modality. It provides high resolution area, fairly accurate up till a limit. But yes, that limit is also very important. If you're not able to image a muscle till that limit, at least you know it is beyond a certain distance from the limbus, and that could be 14 millimeters, what we were able to calculate. So even when you're visualizing, it's good. Even though you're not visualizing, still it would give you an idea. Thank you so much.